All I do is apologize. It's my general skill set. Apologize for Mark.
You're too pleasant. That is your job.
Basically, is to apologize for Mark and make sure we don't go bankrupt. Those are the two roles that Jack has to deal with: manage the relationships with all the businesses.
You heard it here first on MotoManTV. Really, what Jack does, it's not the driving. The driving, that's a stunt driver. That's really me, and I just put a Jack mask on.
It's the right move.
Come on, you got to give me some respect. I called him Eeyore to his face on camera. You got to love that.
See, the general line, if any of you guys love Curb Your Enthusiasm, is he's Larry David.
No, he's even more negative than Larry David. But I can see him in a carpool lane with a hooker. I can totally see that.
Just so he can get through traffic?
Yeah.
Oh, man. So, I haven't seen you in a couple months.
Since November. Last time we got together was Toyota Tacoma.
Yeah. It's been a long time, and prior to doing any of this, Mark and I have known you through the internets. So yeah,
yes.
Let's call it you're one of the originals in the YouTube space.
Why, thank you, sir.
Doing this, and you've stood the test of time, which is not easy. A
lot of reinventions.
Yes, and as we all know, a lot of this content, sadly, for many people, is disposable. So it's about connecting to people in some way or another. I know you had a far more in-depth conversation with Mark, and I'm sure that's probably
what's funny with Mark. The reason why we first met was because Mark is like me. We're both debt Nazis. We're both anti-debt. And when I saw a video you guys did about no debt, I had a mutual friend connect us, and that's how we first got together. And then I found out the dirty secret. I think nobody knows. You're far more interesting than Mark. So whenever we'd go on drives together, it always ends up with the two of us sitting in the lobby bar, just
bullshitting, basically.
Yeah, and it's about what cars do we want, how do we, what are we looking forward to, and that's kind of what we want.
And family and all the other stuff in between.
And basically your problem with cheese boards, we've discussed that too.
Yes, sadly for my waistline. So I'm going to ask you this, and I guess we'll both talk about it, and we'll talk about other things as well.
Sir.
It's the beginning of 24, right? We're beginning of February. What are you excited to drive for 24?
I'm going to give you the curveball answer, and this is 100% the truth. I am excited to drive the new Land Cruiser, the LC250.
Have you been in the new GX yet?
No, I have not been in the GX.
So
you've driven it, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the GX was co-developed. Mr. Koji-san, who's the chief engineer for GX, his team worked directly with the Land Cruiser team. They're both going to be on TNGA F, which is the Toyota truck platform. Obviously, they'll have slightly different drivetrains packaging-wise. But with how good the GX is, I would properly be excited for the new Land Cruiser. I imagine there'll be a slightly different price points, slightly different priorities.
Where does the GX come in?
As far as pricing,
yeah.
I think it's low 60s, and then they top out about 82 grand.
Oh, that's aggressive. Yeah. I expected there to be a bigger delta in the base price. Like I knew the Lexus would probably get into the 90s, but at the end of the day, low 60s, that's a very, very low difference.
Mark and I, the thing that many of your viewers may or may not know is we have similar opinions on a lot of the more commodity, I hate to call them commodity cars, but your SUVs, the minivans of the world, the sedans, like regular cars that people buy for their families to go around in. And a lot of the more recent Lexus products have been a little bit, I hate to say, disappointing. I don't think the RX and the NX are as compelling as they used to be. While the older V6 variants were not amazing cars to drive, the reason you bought them is they had a bulletproof 6 or a very competent hybrid system. They'd be around for a billion years, and they were substantially cheaper than the German rivals. The problem I have with the NX and the RX is they're not that much cheaper than the German rivals, and the fact that they are on a more commodity platform. Their variant TNGA is a front-wheel drive architecture in a platform, a car that's 65 grand or more in the case of the RX. So I didn't feel like that car was particularly compelling at that price point. Most people who buy luxury full-size SUVs lease them anyway.
I had a different view on that car.
You like the RX?
The current one I'm not excited about.
All right.
Neither the NX, and I'll tell you why. I felt that those cars were very popular because they're like a comfortable pair of jeans.
Okay.
You put them on, they make you feel comfortable. They make you feel good. It's not the suit you wear to church. It's not something you wear to the club. Not that I go to a club. But it's not.
I know you're big in that scene. I'm sure.
Exactly. And it's not wearing a pair of shorts. You can dress it up, you can dress it down, and the most important part, and I think this is why they sell so much, you buy them when your kid is born, and you drive it for 18 years, you give it to your kid, and then you tear another one off the roll.
Yeah.
That is the value of an RX. And you know what? It's a little bit luxurious. But I feel like they haven't taken that out of it. It's still a reliable car, but they've lost the plot on the comfortable jeans part, and the car isn't, it looks too commodity, to borrow a term from you. Especially the back end where they've got the tail light that goes across, and then taking a logo that everyone knows and then spelling Lexus out. I feel like that's a misstep.
But what do we know? They've been selling more of them, I think, than they ever have of any RX, from my
Because
understanding.
Toyota is an incredible marketing company. So what are you excited about?
Other than the Land Cruiser,
Yeah.
came out today, depending on when this thing releases. Bunch of rumor mill for new ZR1. Obviously, everyone knows I'm a big vet man. Maybe it'll be out this year. It'll
Oh,
probably be out the
I gotta
next.
stop. Congratulations. I'm excited for you.
I
would have wished you
Oh, thank
to.
you, sir.
It took a long time. Shake
Yeah,
my
well,
hand there. Yeah.
I was so taken back by you congratulating me. on my
I did
old
tell
man
you to
card.
get a GT4. You didn't listen to me, but I think this is a very good alternative.
A little bit of background. I had a GT4 on order. GM was kind enough. I had very little interest in the C8, to be entirely honest. The original car, while I think it's the basic C8, I think it's a great car at $60,000 to $80,000. It's more GT than I was looking for in a vehicle. I like harder edged vehicles. I had a C7 Grand Sport prior to this. The reason I bought that is I couldn't afford a 911. In the case of the C8 Z06, we did if you're really bored, we did a long documentary style film on that car. And working with the engineers, such a special experience. They're all really passionate, and they're some of the best engineers we've ever worked with. That sold me in the car. GM was kind enough to get me an allocation on an early build, and I'm like, sure, why not? I love the 458.
Yeah.
I know it's a cliche. That car, to me, feels like the poor man's 458, or really, to me, it's the poor man's GT3.
Yeah.
It is substantially less expensive than the car you purchased, at least at MSRP. And while I will be the first one to tell you, I don't think this is necessarily as special to drive. The price delta is, in the real world, almost $100,000, depending on what variant you get. $100,000 is a lot of money. So yeah.
That's a GT4.
Yes.
Yeah.
GT4 versus Z06. I love the regular GT4. I love that you can get a manual gearbox in it. And I think it is a more raw car. The C8 still is that, they know who their customer is, right? Older gentleman. Who doesn't want their teeth rattled out. The GT4 has some of that rawness and specialness, but objectively as a car, it is not as good. It's strut all the way around. The 4-liter isn't really a motorsports engine in that case. It's way slower. And when you're on track, and we're partnered with a local track here called Audubon Country Club, so we're really, really fortunate to get a lot of
I
time
have
on
to
track.
say, you guys make great use of that relationship. Like, the shots are amazing.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
I'm a little bit jealous about that location you've got.
Great facility, great people to work with, but yeah, because we have access to the track, we get to spend so much time there. The Cayman is a really fun, like, back road car, despite some of the gearing.
Why are you more excited about the ZR1 now, coming from a Z06?
I just kind of want to see where that story ends. For better or for worse, as we always talk about, we're sort of, in my view, at the closing hours of a lot of internal combustion cars, and I know a lot of the engineers are working on the products on the GM side. They're really, really excited to be a part of potentially the end of the internal combustion line of V8s and all that other fun
They're
stuff.
excited to be at that point?
They're excited to be a part of that story. Like, I got to work on this, if that makes sense.
Like, I worked on the Apollo 1 kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or Apollo 13 in this case.
But like, this is the best that we can possibly do with our technology, and we have the green light and the budget internally to make these cars.
Okay, so let me step back on you for a little bit.
Yeah.
And this is what always happens. We go into
not
philosophical,
gonna be well
and this is going to be,
organized, yeah.
we'll be done in an hour from now. Is it really, do you think it's really the twilight of IC?
Man, this is a conversation Mark and I have all the time. And we spend a lot of time with engineers at OEMs. Yes, I think unless something dramatically changes both from a political perspective and from an economic perspective with the OEMs, development started a long, long time ago on all this stuff, right? And development cycles take a long time. They are fully committed to the next step for what our vehicles are going to be. And there is not a large sports car market to begin with, and there is not a lot of internal pressure from leadership.
I'm not saying I'm not limiting this discussion just to sports cars. This question was just internal combustion engines, and that could include hybrid and plug-in.
Oh, in the
hybrid.
U.S., no. I think the hybrid part of the drivetrains are going to be around for a long time. I'm curious. I don't have a crystal ball, and I know we talk about this all the time. Infrastructure
Mark's
is a
got
concern.
a crystal ball.
Yeah, well, not his head. It's a hard question. I don't think the infrastructure is ready in the U.S.
Yeah.
I just spent a lot of time with Lucid Air, which is our favorite EV, just because of what the car has to
It's
offer.
magnet. I'm the wrong person to ask because I'm biased because Derek Jenkins is a very good friend of mine. So this is
Derek's amazing. Yeah.
great dude. Yeah.
Great car, very, very impressive vehicle. And I drove it from where we live in Illinois to Iowa, and there is infrastructure. There really is, which is shocking. But around here in the city, no infrastructure whatsoever, which is hilarious. Joys of the Midwest. And it'll come out on our video when it releases. The reality parts of EVs in our current technology, the car has tremendous efficiency. It's the most efficient EV. I drove it, first time out was 50 degrees, which is California weather, California winter weather. And then we got Illinois winter
50
weather.
degrees is cold, man. I got the heat cranking in the house at 50 degrees.
It was like 29 when I woke up to drive it back. And I went from having at 80 miles an hour, 300 miles of range, to 80 miles an hour, 200 miles of range. And I think the vast majority of humanity will not accept that because it is a less convenient mode of transportation, at least for long drives. The regular drive from where I am in Illinois to Iowa takes 4.5, maybe 4 hours and 45 minutes on average. I added almost an hour to my drive. Just I need to charge, I need to stop, I need to do all the BS associated with it. I don't think the vast majority of people are going to accept that level of compromise.
So I'm going to weigh in. I agree with you completely. But I feel we are not at the end of ICE. And again, the definition of ICE now is ICE, plug-in hybrid, and hybrid. So just for the avoidance before these people start jumping all over me. And I'll tell you why. This you and I have agreed on for the past couple of years since we've been having these discussions. The regulators, whether it's EU or the US, have pushed this very aggressive mandate schedule. And I don't know if they bought their own bullshit or not, but they were selling it that we can hit these targets by 2030, 2035. And they pushed manufacturers very, very hard, and some bought into it hard, like General Motors.
Yeah.
Others didn't, like Toyota and BMW. And now I feel like we're at that point, like in Wall Street, where Michael Douglas says to Daryl Hannah, don't fall in love with that kid, he hasn't been around the block yet. I feel like that's what Akio Toyoda has told the mandate people and say, look, I want to stay in business. What you're telling me to do, I will go out of business. Yeah. And the realities of the infrastructure problems, I would argue more importantly, the grid problems, the speed at which this happens. And don't get me wrong, you guys, we are actually proponents. We like the technology underpinning electric cars. It's the unfortunate decisions that got us there. And now you're starting to see reality slap these guys in the face. And just this week, last week, they had the earnings call for General Motors. And your girl, Mary Barra, you know what she announced? They're going to have more plug-in hybrids and hybrids. They're going to rush them to the market because they realize the market isn't embracing the EVs at the pace they want. Plus, they have the stop sale on the Blazer. Plus, they had how many problems with the Hummer EV, and they can't get cars out fast enough.
Rushed GM product does not sound like a winning formula.
And now you're not old enough, he is, but you're not old enough to remember this. This is the second time GM has done this. Back when there was a fuel crisis, granted I'm not old enough, but I did the research. There was a fuel crisis in the 70s. They keel-hauled the whole system, downsized everything, and by the time all the downsized cars came out 7 years, 8 years, 10 years later, nobody wanted them. And they had to go and redo the product portfolio again.
I had this conversation with a rep that we both know, and I've had this conversation with a lot of engineers. There's a disconnect, just like in most industries, between regulators and engineers, and it doesn't matter if you're in aerospace.
Everything, yes.
The automotive space is no different, and my family has a long history in consumer electronics, for better or for worse, on the engineering side. That speed in which a cell phone can come out, the supplier chain and all that other fun stuff while it is incredibly complicated, it is easier to be more reactive in consumer electronics than it is from an automobile perspective. So you add how long it takes to develop a car, and on top of that you add the fact that most regulators have no technical background whatsoever, and they don't really care to know. There's a giant gap between what they understand and what the reality part of how cars are made, how cars perform.
I call it, don't bother with the facts, my mind is already made up.
Pretty much. And the engineers have the misfortune, or the fortune, because there's two ways to look at it, and they have to figure it out. So they have the pressure to need to figure this out, but at the same time, we are all stuck with beta products essentially in the beginning. These first couple generations of EVs, this is something I talk about all the time, they're disposable products. Not in that they won't work anymore. Yes, battery packs are some blah, blah, blah. They're disposable in that nobody wants an iPhone 1, right? Phones are things you throw out every 3 years because the technology is improving at such a vast rate.
See, I'm one of those guys that wants to, I want to go for the award of the oldest iPhone, but they keep on taking it away from me.
That's what I mean by with cars, though. Like the Taycan's a great example.
The Taycan's a wonderful example.
The Taycan's a great car. Drives well. It's a Porsche. It's well put together. Yada yada yada. Yes, it has its JD power problems, but it is fundamentally, when it's working, a good car. Those cars now, particularly with the new Taycan coming out, having over 300 miles of range, have effectively made the original Taycans incredibly worthless for the original MSRP. You're talking about a car well north of six figures is now 70 grand with low miles, 60 grand.
I knew that going into it, but I don't know if the owners knew that going into it.
You're not going to sell a car to somebody by saying, hey, if you buy this thing, it's going to be a worthless POS. Not that it's inherently a bad car, but the technology's moved forward at such a fast rate. I mean, look at what the original Leaf at 100-mile range.
Yeah, now people laugh at that.
Yeah.
But, okay, so you and I recently participated in the Macan EV, or electric, whatever they're calling it. I think that's a great example of what we're talking about here. When they first envisioned that car, like you said, long lead times. It used to be 7 years to develop a car. Now they can do it in 3, sometimes less. The Hummer EV was done in 18 months.
Yeah, that story's amazing and terrifying at the same time.
Until you realize it turns into a brick. Beside the point. When they first envisioned the Macan, they were like, we're only doing electric. That's it.
Yeah.
EU says this, and then in between the time they started to the time now, Germany backed off the EV only in the EU and redefined it as plug-in hybrid and hybrid as well. Italy, after GM, they backed off of it too. After Germany, they backed off of it as well. And what changed on top of that, or I should say under it, the market was like, you know what, we can't afford EVs. We don't want as many EVs. And now Porsche has changed their tune. They said, you know what? We're going to continue with the Macan going into this market. The gas car will continue alongside the EV car, only outside of Europe. In Europe, they can't have that car continue.
So I guess this leads me back to our original discussion about why I'm excited about the 01. But I guess what I'm getting at in that case, or cars like that, like whenever GT2 RS comes out, is I do not think internally the development budget is going to be towards, hey, let's make high polluting, high horsepower, big displacement, high revving engines. It's how do we get our internal combustion engine architectures that we currently have, and how do we make them accept hybridization and PHEVs?
Totally agree with you.
So that generation
That's what I'm like. We're not sitting here. We're not like, what are the two from the Muppets, the two guys up in the balcony?
No. Oh, God.
You can picture it.
Yeah, I know exactly what
We
you're
are
talking
not
about.
those guys. We're not sitting here saying, EV's crap, we don't want EV. For a city car, I'm all over.
Amazing.
But I'm still keeping my GT3. And the reality is, my quarrel with the regulators is the speed at which you did this, how you financed it, and you excluded every other option. And what you and I are saying at this point, and what we're excited for, is more of that, hey, you know what? Let's throw in an electric motor into a car and see if we can get a little bit more torque at zero and get some more efficiency. I'd love to save some money on energy.
The other car I'm excited about, new 992 generation, if that comes out this year.
The hybrid.
Just 992.2 in general.
Yeah, that too, yeah.
I'm really excited for that car.
You and me both.
The 992 generation 911, I know a lot of people have problems with it being too big. That doesn't bother me at all.
It doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah. I imagine that car is going to be spectacular.
I mean, if you think about it, the car really has been around. That size car has been around since 2011, when they introduced the 2012 991.
Mm-hmm.
That was the big change in size, and that's where the other thing most people don't realize is the engine. It moved forward the most ever in all generations of 911. It moved forward an inch.
It's an amazing car. I imagine they're going to do a tremendous job. 718 EV, maybe is this year, maybe next year. I know it's an EV. I'm more curious from the technology perspective.
Yeah.
Porsches have a history of being track capable. The 718 EV might be and they have their GT4E, but
Yeah.
I'm curious how they figure out the battery chemistry element of it.
Yeah.
Most Porsche owners that track their cars would not be okay with 5 to 8 laps before the batteries get too hot and then pass the pullback power. I'm curious if Porsche can figure out the 718 EV in that element.
I don't think in that time they can, and this is where I think you have a background in tech as well. You worked in the tech world. I was in the tech world as well. There are certain things that don't change, and we were working on battery formulations and chemicals back when I was in the tech world, because I was fixed internet, hardware, fixed internet, and then mobile internet.
Okay.
So we actually had to work within the confines of the battery because we were soaking up so much battery for our apps. Basically what my company did was we invented location-based services, which was all the data that plugs into apps today. I didn't. I was part of the company that did. And there hasn't been that big of a jump in battery technology from that, well, we're talking 20 years ago. And now you're going to see it because there's so much investment in it, mainly from car manufacturers, but not to the point where in time for the first 718 to not have that 900-pound weight delta.
So I'm curious how that's going to go. I am excited for the car. I think the OEMs that I've spoken to, the engineers off the record from the brands you're probably thinking of, when it comes to an EV sports car,
Yeah.
they're all curious in how Porsche is going to do it. The joke is, with most engineers, who are the best engineers? The Corvette guys will say they are, and in many ways they are. The other team is Porsche. Everyone I know from the other OEMs is looking to see what they do.
A little bit behind the scenes that you guys don't know. Everybody that you see on our shows, our respective shows, I won't name names, but they might work for General Motors, they might work for Toyota, but all the guys that are high up that are into cars, they make money selling you a car, and then they pay tax on that money, and what car do they all buy?
Every single executive I know at a car company, for the most part, owns some sort of Porsche product.
Without exception.
Yeah.
Everyone I know. Anyway, I'm going to pose another question for you. Not just excited, let's put aside the excited thing for a minute. What car brand, and you can drill into the model as well, do you think could get away with commercializing bleeding edge battery technology to lower weight at the cost of some reliability? Meaning put it to market first. What car brand and or model could take that hit?
I think the brand that could take that hit is the brand least likely to do it. It's Toyota.
You think so? Toyota. I think they would. I would agree with you. Least likely to do it.
Yeah, he's not going to do it, but I think they could get away with it. They're not yet.
Yeah.
But say the solid state battery thing comes online like they're claiming it would. If they could make that available in commercial vehicles at the scale that Toyota can put out, it'd be pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Do you disagree?
Oh, I think it would be incredibly impressive.
Because they're claiming by 2029 or something they'll come up with solid state batteries, and they're claiming like 600 or 700 miles worth of range, and they claim they figured out a mass casting method to reduce manufacturing times dramatically, and the battery packs get smaller and lighter. From a commercial perspective, that'd be unbelievable. I just think the only thing that would stop them being late to putting those to market is that they would, because it's Toyota, will take forever in just making sure the system works.
So
follow,
reliability is
such a huge part of it.
It is the brand.
Yes.
I mean, people ask me like, why is the 911 so much more reliable than other Porsches? Because it is synonymous with Porsche. That's why they can get away with Cayennes being a little less reliable, Maycans being a little less reliable than a 911. So you think Toyota would be the one that can get away with it but wouldn't do it? Let's put aside Toyota. Is there a car you can see get away with it?
If you asked me 3 years ago, I thought it'd be GM. because I thought Ultium was incredibly scalable, but they've had a lot of problems with Ultium on their end.
I think I'm personal friends with most of the people who design and engineer and build General Motors cars, even though I don't feature them on my show anymore. They are an incredible engineering company. There's no doubt about that. But I felt like the PR people oversold the Ultium thing. In reality, it is just a way of positioning the batteries, and nothing more than that.
The modularity is something that was impressive.
Yeah, and on the flip side, where I do have to give them a huge amount of credit, they're the ones that have demonstrated the success, or really the benefit of when you do have a skateboard, meaning EV, it's easier to make more one-off or low production cars. If you think about what GM has done, the Hummer EV, forget that it was unreliable. Great looking truck. Brought back an iconic brand, not my kind of brand, but man oh man is it cool looking going down the road. Look at that new Escalade, that IQ thing.
Yeah.
I'm not an Escalade guy, but I gotta say, that's a damn good looking car. Or the Celestiq, a $300,000 cat. You'd never think you'd get any of this stuff.
I guess the reason why I think they have a chance of pushing you're asking who could push into the commercial space, is the modularity of the architecture. So they have one platform that can be a truck, an SUV, a strut-based SUV in the case of a Blazer, double wishbone, or multi-link in the case of a Lyriq. It could be a huge pickup truck like the Hummer EV is, or a less expensive pickup truck like the Silverado. I just, honestly, man, I don't know if they can actually get that massively introduced and work for a commercial application.
Okay, so let's each answer one more car that we're excited for 2024. What's one more for you?
Man, I know this is probably strange for you, but another car I'm really excited for is the update to the Elantra N. I know it's not a massive update, a couple mechanical changes, but the fact that Hyundai is still building a very, I hate to say $35,000 or $34,000 is affordable, but a very affordable enthusiast compact car that doesn't have a lot of limitations from a track perspective. Obviously it's not some rear-wheel drive high horsepower car, but name another brand new $34,000 car with a long warranty that you can put your whole family in, that you can just take to a racetrack, beat the snot out of, have a long warranty, and then also put in traffic and use it as an everyday car.
It is a fantastic value. I hate to admit it, but the DCT is the better car to drive.
Yeah.
I would buy the manual because we are both broken individuals, judging by the cars we have chosen.
Yeah.
You're going to think we actually discussed this before but we didn't discuss this. The last one I'm going to say I'm excited for is a car. I don't know if it's actually coming to market, but the rumor mill says that Hyundai is going to make a limited run of those hydrogen, whatever that Giugiaro design. I don't think it's going to be hydrogen, but this, again...
Oh, looks amazing, yeah.
I think it's going to be some EV something or other, but how cool would that be?
EGMP, EGIMP.
Did you get to drive the Ioniq 5N yet?
No, you are one of the lucky few, yeah.
And, oh my God, holy crap,
that's what Mark is incredibly excited for.
You'd think the thing with the paddles is a gimmick, and it is. By design, it is a gimmick, because all you're doing is blipping the torque. But you know how heavy that car is. The basic one's 4,800 pounds. This one's like 5,300 pounds. You actually control all of that weight by blipping the torque. It's like bending the space-time continuum. So the reason why I'm excited about this other one, imagine that stunning Giugiaro-inspired body on the N platform.
Oh, I'm sure it'd be amazing.
I'd get excited.
Is there a regular commodity car? Again, I don't mean commodity as a derogatory statement.
No, I get what you're saying. Yeah. A car that
people buy to actually use.
Yeah, you would commute from here to Buffalo Grove in it. Is a regular you know what? You're gonna laugh at me, and you're gonna think this is the gimme. The Crown Signia.
Really?
Because I like station wagons. You said commodity car.
No, I know. Yeah.
If I were a practical human being, which I am not, I would absolutely want a station wagon. Would I want to spend $150 grand on an RS6 to go to Buffalo Grove? No. But that, and I would buy it used, of course, because I'm a cheapskate. What about you, commodity car?
The one I'm probably looking the most forward to, I know I sound like a broken record, Mark and I are big Honda people, Whenever the Civic hybrid hatch comes out, I think it might come
Yeah.
out this year.
Yeah.
60 miles the gallon or whatever it's going to be in a hatchback Civic is going to be perfect.
I wouldn't argue with that. Maybe with the seats from a Type R.
Yeah, somehow I don't think they're going to do that, but just
Yeah.
you know the thing that I really appreciate in everyday car is something small but relatively spacious. The Civic's a great example.
Yeah.
Impressive that is that, and then
Hey,
something
you
you
drove
never
the
think
Prologue.
about.
How did you like the Prologue? Oh boy. Should I just say let's move on?
No, I'm going to be honest. I went into that, and you'll see it if you watch your video, which feel free to or don't. I thought that was just going to be a GM product that's at Honda, like in crayon.
That's what it
on
looks like to me.
And there are elements of it that are that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you and I are in and out of everything. And if you're in and out of a lot of GM products, like all the switch gear, the seats, the head unit, is GM. But they had the freedom when speaking to the engineer, John, the chief engineer, to basically make everything above the battery pack their own, but they were stuck with GM's suppliers. So a lot of the individual placement for components and the way the car, you interact with it, you look out of it, feels like a Honda. It has the benefits of being an EV. It's ultra quiet, far more refined than like a Honda Pilot or a CR-V. The con is, I don't know how big of a market there is for a $60,000, 288 horsepower, 5,000 pound SUV. Like I think a lot of the family stuff it does, inherently being an EV, you're better off with a Pilot, like a regular Pilot or a CR-V. That
Yeah.
becomes my problem with the car.
So it goes back to the cost thing, which is a big issue of
Yeah, I
EVs
mean,
we didn't talk about. We'll have to put that into a next episode. So you can see more of that in his episode on it, because he drove it, I didn't. I will tell you that I actually think it's good looking.
Yeah, it's not bad looking.
I think they did a beautiful job hiding the GM bones. Interior, not as much.
That's what they're
You
relying
see
on.
all the GM bones, but they're changing that. They at CES, they basically divorced General Motors. So, you know how I end my episodes? We turn the episodes around to the audience. What question would you like to pose to the audience?
What are you guys excited for 2024? What do you want to buy or own this
That
year?
is a good question. Will you look through the comments and respond to some of these folks?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so you get a personal response, not every one of you. Some of you lucky enough to be blessed by Mr. Cheesehead here. Let us know in the comments below or via our social media, MotoManTV, all one word, MotoManTV, all one word, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And we specifically are looking for you to tell us what you are excited about for 2024. And yes, you can go off on a tangent like we normally do.
Yeah, this was not well organized.
Yeah, but that's what happens with the two of us. Anyway, I got what I wanted. I said we need to duplicate one of those conversations we have at the bar at 11 o'clock.
Just without cheese and booze.
We're doing that tonight. You know what? If you guys found this of interest, you can watch more episodes like this in our members-only playlist where I have illustrious folks like this from the industry, where we have discussions and we pontificate about the future. You can see that here. Until we see you in the next episode, bish beta.
Good enough.
Man. Oh, great.